And with that, we go straight into our first debate on Newshour tonight. Is it okay to ban sex education and replace it with value-based education? We are joined now by Dr. Sambit, Patra, spokesperson of the BJP, Prem Shukla, executive editor of Dupahar Ka Saamna. We also have with us in our Delhi studio Priyanka Chaturvedi, spokesperson of the Congress, and Ira Trivedi, who's a novelist and author of India in Love, Marriage and Sexuality in the 21st Century. Also actor Pooja Bedi joining us live from Mumbai. Let's start straight away. Pose the question to Sambit Patra. What exactly is value-based education, since you planning, or rather Dr. Harsh Vardhan has advocated replacing sex education with value-based education, Dr. Sambit Patra? Whose values are we talking about?
First and foremost, I believe that this particular debate about banning sex education and all is a manufactured debate.
No,
because no one, as to why I feel, let me just clarify my point of view. Since morning we are running this, but with the clarification that Dr. Harsh Vardhan has given, I see there is no reason as to why we should be discussing it.
No, because the clarification has come as an afterthought after all the debate.
No, not at all. Not at all. Debate started thereafter. But remember one thing, it is almost like converting a past tense into a present tense. Something which took place in 2007, on which we had a lot of discussion. And after the discussion, the then UPA dispensation on the adolescent education program about the particular toolkit that we were talking about then, that it was vulgar, it was even withdrawn. So I believe there's no reason.
He's the health minister. It's on his website. These are essentially the thoughts. He said it's my personal opinion, but it's the thoughts of the health minister.
That's the reason as to why I say it is like past tense being converted into the present tense.
No, it's not about
It is something which took place in 2007, which he wrote about 8 months ago. So I believe today he's not the HRD minister. He's not spoken after becoming a minister. He has not expressed his views. So I believe there's no reason as to why we should be discussing this topic at all.
No
one. BJP is the last government to stand against sex education. We have nothing against sex education.
His thought processes have changed in these 8 months. Are you trying to tell us this? In 2013, he writes a blog where he says there should be no sex education, it should be banned.
The matter was different. Even the Congress ruled states, even the Congress ruled states were standing against that matter. Congress rule, including Maharashtra, from where you belong to, they were standing against the kit that was provided for the adolescents education program. And taking in view, a review committee was set by the UPA and the kit was done away with. So I see no problem with it.
No, I'd just like to make one point here to Sambit. Sambit, in 2007, this was raised and there was a committee which was formed, and then please let me speak. Various party members were a part of that committee, and it came to a conclusion that it needed to be modified. What we now have here is a reaction from the health minister, who solely on basis of his thought processes has come and said that sex education needs to be banned.
We don't have a reaction today.
Is it an ideology? Is it an ideology that
remember?
No, it's clearly
Priyanka,
an ideology that he's trying to push.
It was not a reaction today. It was a reaction then. That is the reason as to why I say a past tense has been converted into a present tense. We should not be discussing on an issue which has never been
Chaturvedi.
I mean, it never came up for discussion once Dr. Harsh Vardhan became a minister. He never uttered a word on sex education.
Sambit Patra, Priyanka Chaturvedi, good evening.
So why are we discussing an issue which is a non-issue? It is a manufactured debate, that's why I say.
Sambit. Now you say we are all talking, it's
Anand,
a manufactured debate. You're saying it's all in past tense, but the fact is it still remains that they remain on his website. If his point of view has changed, why haven't the contents of what has been put out changed? Why did the clarification come only when the debate and the issue was raised? And the clarification which comes also talks about vulgarization of sex education. I mean, what does he mean by that? I mean, the level, anyway, the levels of sex education that should be given in our schools is abysmal. And most, so what is vulgarization? What does he mean by that? You know, the face saver itself raises more questions.
What is vulgarization? Who decides what is vulgarization? What is immoral? What is moral?
Priyanka,
I'll come across to you. Just let Sambit Patra answer this.
So pertinently, then I'll say that after the court cases yesterday, the Congress is trying to hide behind.
No, answer the question, Sambit. Let's get back to this
technical issues.
Let's
go back to this. That's what I'm saying. Let's have technical issues. Let's have technical issues over here. First and foremost, let me bring to your notice what is the definition of sex education as far as the UNICEF
No, I don't want the definition. I want you to tell me what do you mean by vulgarization of sex education? I mean, what do you mean by that explanation?
Coming to the
vulgarization of sex education. Where?
You have picked up threads from 2007 again.
No, I'm fixing up. I am asking you what has come out as a clarification.
Yes, the press
press release.
I am asking you.
This press release
Sambit,
speaks
I am asking
of
you from the press
tool,
release that
the
was
kit
issued today.
That was quite vulgar during 2007, and that's what he says. In 2007,
no,
the kind
2007
of
is not
chart
mentioned.
that we had
Sambit,
was not like
2007 is not
also,
mentioned.
and
Past data is not mentioned. What is mentioned is that he is still against. He is not against sex education. Sambit, listen to me here. No, this press release. Sambit, read the press release. Sambit, read the press release. The press release says that Dr. Harsh Vardhan is not against sex education,
but the fact of the matter is that what it was
vulgarization of
trying
sex
to implement
education.
in
What does he mean by that?
2007 was implemented after due consultation with a wide range of health experts, educationists. So all of them are completely discounted because what you think and what Dr. Harsh Vardhan think is the right thing to be taught, that is right. What educationists think, healthcare professionals think, all of that is moot. That doesn't matter.
You have to understand one thing. In 2007, Harsh Vardhan and slew of others, including many Congress people, also commented upon, objected upon what was being brought into the plate. And then a review committee was said, things were made right. Then he said that the 2000 thing was not right then. It was made right.
So why do you want? So should it be banned?
It was banned already. That toolkit was banned by your government.
Absolutely, modification does not mean
you bring it over here?
You're just talking about
ignoring my question.
Sorry, you're talking about toolkit.
It was modified.
Part of the entire education curriculum.
Tried to understand the matter of 2007.
Should I assume that you're purposely ignoring my question?
Any minister,
should I assume you're deliberately ignoring my question?
That we are not for this
Sambit,
education. No one. You picked up some threads from 2007.
No, Dr. Sambit Patra. Dr. Sambit Patra.
Is in place. You suddenly start
with
discussing.
all due respect, please listen to me. Please listen to me.
Answer.
Why are you ignoring my question, Sambit? My question is dated this 27th of June 2000. 27th of June 2014. The clarification statement, and I am reading from here. This is what he has said. In this case, he says, yes, I am not against, Dr. Harsh Vardhan is not against sex education, but he's against the vulgarization of sex education. Where did that come from and what does he mean by that?
Let me now first explain as to what he means. He categorically says over here, I'm a medical professional who has embraced rationalism, and I wholeheartedly support pedagogy, that is a way of education that is scientific and culturally acceptable. So he completely accepts that sex education cannot be done away with, should not be done away with. It is scientific, it is acceptable. But remember one thing, even the UNICEF discussion, definition as far as what is sex education says that it should be age appropriate and it should be culturally appropriate. So in this issue, Dr. Harsh Vardhan only reminds of the fact that back in 2007, since the issue that has been discussed since morning,
so
I had objected to.
He chooses to call it vulgarization of sex education.
Vulgar. Minorities bodies across the country call it vulgar. The toolkit. Remember the toolkit.
Used in the press release.
Okay, just hold on a second, because this wrangling can go on endlessly. I also want to involve Dr. Ameeta Wattal at this point. She is a principal, and ultimately it is her and her students who will be affected by whatever it is that the health minister decides to say and maybe ultimately do as well. Ameeta Wattal, what do you make all of this? Do you think that now it should be a politician, a health minister deciding whether sex ed should really be imparted on this at a time when school children are increasingly aware? They are attaining puberty earlier. The incidence of teenage pregnancy is going up. And here we say, let's just talk about values first. Let's not introduce them to the evils of sex education. Let's just talk about family values first, because that is more important in schools.
Firstly, I'd like to start by saying that, the whole issue of sex education, the word itself seems to be creating a lot of conflict in people. And if we're not able to use the word sex, how are we going to go ahead and sensitize children towards so many issues that are taking place? So let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. As some speaker earlier said, that there are different levels at which we are dealing with children. When they're younger, when they're in the primary sections, we deal with them differently. When they're older, we deal with adolescents at the level of puberty differently. But certainly, I think it's extremely important to have an understanding of gender, of sensitivity, of awareness. And this is all brought to, it doesn't mean that sex education is a sexual act, or you're trying to show people about that, or you're trying to educate people about that. Essentially, it's about educating children about issues that are really rampant today. It's about violence on women. It's about the fact that children are getting abused, molestation is taking place, it's taking place in work areas, it's taking place in schools. Now, unless we're aware of how this happens and how do they prevent these things from happening, how are we going to take this debate further? I think we should not get involved with the words. Sex education is a very important part of family education. It's a very important part of life skills education. It's a very important part of emotional and social skills. Children today cannot deal with rejection, and you have people who throw acid on their friends or colleagues. That itself is because the whole ratio is so skewed. There's so many men and so very few women. So the point here is that this whole thing has to be looked at holistically.
Isn't all of this
we have to look at it holistically. It's
attitude?
about
these are these
which
uncomfortable subjects. We
did
don't
not
want
do
to
this.
deal with them. So let's just do away with them. Let's hide
and
behind
parents don't
family
like to
values.
discuss
Talk
them.
about that
Parents-
because sex is
parents
such a
don't like
scary
to
word.
discuss them.
No one wants to
Yes.
talk about it, even if that puts the children to risk, Pooja
but
Bedi.
somewhere you have to deal with it. Somewhere you have to deal with it. Children turn around and say that, ma'am, if we can't use the word sex and the teacher gets embarrassed, how are we going to ask her any questions if we're worried about a relationship? Or how far do we go from here? Or what is a teenage pregnancy about? So the teachers have to be empowered. They have to deal with this. They have no understanding of how to go forward
Madam
and deal
Ameeta
with it.
Wattal,
In any case,
I request you to hold your thoughts. We'll just bring in some of the other guests.
The way that they're teaching this.
Padmaja, I put across a question to Pooja Bedi. Pooja, your point of view and your response to Padmaja's question, and I'll also bring in Mr. Prem Shukla and Ira Trivedi after that.
I just like to make a couple of points here. One is, Dr. Harsh Vardhan has said he's not against sex education now. I want to know if he is for it. Because I think it's very important to know that our ministers are for empowering the next generation. When you say sex education, it has the word education attached to it. It is something that is meant to empower you. It is not something that is meant to corrupt you. So having said that, when he says it should not be vulgar, what makes him think that we would anyway create a vulgar curriculum for our children? I mean, is that a cop-out to just say, yes, it should not be vulgar, yes, it should have values, because it resonates well to say such things with the Indian populace? I think what's really, really important here is sensitization. I think what's really important also with this current generation is to make this word sex not a bad word anymore. I think from nursery onwards, sex should be something that is a very normal word. It's a function. You eat, you sleep, you breathe, you have sex. It's just a function. How you introduce the concept of sex, good touch, bad touch, your hormonal changes, biological reactions towards the opposite sex, when you introduce, the concept of same-sex love, etc., that is dependent on ages and stages and
but you know what, Pooja,
etc., and the need of
I'm
the
going
hour,
to go back to the question and the argument that you raised. I'm going to go back and the argument that you raised. How can they say it is vulgarization? Because Mr. Prem Shukla, this program was aimed to impart adolescence education, not sex education. The toolkit was meant for teachers, not for students. And the program was developed by the ministry in collaboration with the National AIDS Control Organization, that is NACO. So how and what of it is vulgar? And I'm going to, after your point of view, I'm going to go across to the Springdale's principal who is with us and ask her, does she really believe that the sex education being imparted to the higher secondary students, that too at a level, is actually vulgar? And is there any merit in what has come as a clarification? I'm going by the statement today. Yes, Mr. Prem Shukla.
Dr. Harsh Vardhan has not given any government order. Just he's making an opinion in his blog. And I
but
think
he is the health minister. He's no longer an individual person, sir. He's a public voice. He's a public voice whose opinion matters.
He had just opened a debate.
The chief ministership
and a healthy debate is required in this matter.
But it's not a healthy debate, sir.
No.
How can you say it's a healthy debate?
How you can say it is unhealthy?
This is an unwanted debate because you're not expecting somebody who's an ENT specialist who's supposed to be credited with eradicating polio to come out and say that sex education should be banned. One says, sorry, clarification, vulgar sex education should be banned.
What do you think?
Vulgarization should be banned. What vulgarization is sex education?
What do you think?
I mean, why should he make a statement like that?
Why he should be denied his power to... He has got also the right to express his opinion. Just he has opined it. And he has not proposed...
He is being voted to represent the people. So he might have a personal opinion. No, but every opinion of his has to be measured. No, it has to be measured. There is weight and it reflects.
Anand, can I have 2 seconds?
Sambit, 1 second. I'll come across.
Sambit, I'll come to you. You can have 2 seconds, Sambit Patra. You can have those 2 seconds. Because I want to actually ask Mr. Prem Shukla on a very specific point. He says, why should
didn't the opposition turn around and
he denied his personal opinion?
We are not trying to defend, sir. Just I want to say that he has just opened a debate. If you need, it is compulsory for the welfare of the children.
Mr. Prem Shukla, you made your point. You said that Dr. Harsh Vardhan.
So what you have to do?
Mr. Prem Shukla.
You have to do a big and large debate on it.
No, why should there be a debate on something which is relevant?
If you just allow me a question.
Why should we have
That's my question. That's my question. We shouldn't have had to debate this. We shouldn't have had to debate this. Because this is something which all of us agree that it is important. That it's supposed to be part of our system.
Yes, of course. But
if you allow me, I just want to raise the technicality on the floor, and then I believe the August House can take it forward. Please allow me.
Mr. Shukla, we can go on endlessly just trying to outshout each other, but I in fact wanted to rebut you on what you said. You said, why shouldn't the health minister have a personal opinion? That is because when he says something, it has ramifications. Now, it's a known fact that soon after Mr. Harsh Vardhan said that the use of the condom is not as effective as fidelity in preventing AIDS, NACO actually had to do a rethink on the way they were carrying out the entire AIDS prevention program. And that is why Dr. Sambit Patra, when you say, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. NACO is actually rethinking their entire anti-AIDS program now, thanks to what Dr. Harsh Vardhan's personal opinion was.
Dr. Harsh Vardhan never said do away with the condoms and don't use condoms. He only said that fidelity is equally important as condoms.
No. He said fidelity is safer.
No. There's nothing wrong with it.
He said
ideal world, in an ideal world, this would have probably been possible.
So he should not be denied to express his opinion.
Let's come to the technicality over here. Just a second, if I'm allowed to make this technicality, this definition by UNICEF, remember this is a worldwide definition, has to be first heard in a second. The definition is, sex education is not about teaching children how to have sex. It is about implementing a well-researched, age-appropriate. So when our talented actress Pooja Ji says that from nursery we have to teach them about the word sex, I believe even UNICEF says age-appropriate.
Is get the taboo out of the way.
Just a second. She
Please,
can speak for
that was the point.
Yes, we can use the word awareness in nursery. We can use
okay, now you made your point. Do allow me to bring in Ira. Do allow me to bring in Ira Trivedi.
Then UNICEF says culture sensitivity.
Sambit, I request you to please allow me to bring in Ira Trivedi into the debate.
Has to follow the
I also want to go back to the Springdale principle.
UNICEF says. So why can't we follow the UNICEF's dictum at least? If we feel that Indian culture is so bad that we need to follow the West.
Sambit Patra, let the other participants also have their say.
Yes, Ira, what's your point of view? Do you agree with Sambit Patra when he gives these long-winded definitions
Anand?
which we already know? Or is he trying to say that the current education policy doesn't follow the guidelines of the UNICEF and the policy that's been brought together and put in place after so much care and consideration is actually vulgar?
Anand, could I just step in right here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just trying to say that this is, first of all, this is not at all a political issue. You know, we can't look back at the past and say this is what happened, this is what didn't happen, the 2000 program was like this, what's not like this. I've gone and interviewed hundreds of young people, and at the moment, India has a huge demographic dividend. These young people are incredibly confused about sex. The abortion rates in our country are skyrocketing, and these are teenage pregnancies. If you speak to any gynecologist, this is what they'll tell you. This has a huge effect on women's health and maternal health. If we look at, India is really going through a sexual revolution at the moment, and we must address it. So I do think that the health minister making views on condom usage and making very archaic views on morality and culture is definitely not what India needs at this moment of time when we're going through these incredible changes. What India has seen in the space of sex in the past 10 years has been greater than anything over the past few hundred years. And I think we all need to develop like that, and the government needs to provide the infrastructure for all of these young people. If we look at official abortion numbers, they've gone up something like 3 times over the past 6 years. If we look at teenage and premarital sex, it's gone up something like 30 to 40%, and even 15, 16-year-olds now are having sex in metro areas, and counselors will tell you that, doctors will tell you that. So I do really believe that we need all the infrastructure to provide that. What I do not like about the health minister's statements are his statements on morality and culture. What is Indian culture? What is morality? Because in many parts of our country, for example, the Khasis, premarital sex is okay. Who is to say that premarital sex is good or bad? or a certain way of sexual behavior is good or bad. So I'm not so sure that any one view can be taken on on Indian culture or Indian morality. And also when it comes to vulgarity, I have seen those 2007 AEP programs and they're hardly vulgar. In fact, in today's day and age, we do need a very, very structured sexual education program. I'm not that old myself. I went through the school system 10 years ago, and let me tell you that it's abysmal. There is one sex education class in the 10th standard that lasts for 30 minutes, and that is all the sex education anyone gets. And I also believe that these days...
Absolutely. In fact, that's the question I'm taking to Dr. Sambit Patra. You were talking about how Dr. Harsh Vardhan was just articulating a more cultural view of how AIDS prevention can be done, of how sex education should be conducted. Again, on technicalities, since you're talking about technicalities, a study was conducted, and the source is UNDP and the National AIDS Control Organization, which said, and you're talking about a husband-wife relationship, 90% of the 39% of the women who were surveyed got HIV from their husbands. So it's not essentially fidelity only that will keep you safe from AIDS.
Dr. Harsh Vardhan was not teaching fidelity only to a particular gender. He was talking in general.
He said fidelity is more effective if we just stick to Indian values and we are faithful in our relationship. It's more effective than the use of a condom, which is not true.
There was no comparison, which is more, which is less. He was only talking of a holistic approach, that if condoms are important, equally important is the fidelity also.
No, he said it's more important to talk.
No, he said it, yes.
See, there's no denying that every part is important.
At least listen to a divergent view.
Important. I get the point.
You're saying something which is not true, Sambit.
Get your point from the Should we listen to you then? He has in his next statement said that I am approaching a holistic view. He is taking a holistic view towards prevention of AIDS. What's wrong with the health minister talking about
my question, again, I'm going to come back to the statement today. Sambit Patra, I'm not going to go to the past. I'm going to come back to the question today, and I'm going to come back to this statement today, and I'm going to ask Ameeta Wattal this. Do you take exception to that clarification or the face saver that came from Dr. Harsh Vardhan's side, that he says he's against the vulgarization of sex education? Do you believe that sex education, there is vulgarization of sex education in our school system today? Is he right in making a comment like that?
You asking me this question?
No, I'm asking Ameeta Wattal, principal of the Springdale School.
No, I would like to firstly again say that why aren't we bringing adolescents and why aren't we asking them, why aren't we doing a survey with children and asking them what they think about this? Because ultimately they lie at the heart of the debate, and if you've said, and we all believe that the adolescent's age has shifted, and today's 16-year-old is like yesterday's 18-year-old, or today's 14 is like yesterday's 16, and the fact that we bring in psychologists very, very often into schoolrooms to discuss relational issues with children, to discuss because they say that technologically they have so much that comes at them through technology, whether it is aberrated sex or whether it is irregular sex or regular sex, all the time they have huge blasts of it coming through technology, and there's a lot of confusion in their minds. And so I think the very fact that there has to be discussion, there has to be a dialogue, we should open out this dialogue to young adolescents. We're constantly talking about let them look at the environment, they are our new tomorrows. Then why aren't we bringing them into the debate and asking them what they want, instead of all of us sitting here and discussing politics? I think it's essential that we have to look at the way our children are looking at things. It is essential that we have to see that they need us right now. There has to be a dialogue on the whole understanding of
Ira, just
sex
wait.
education.
Pooja Bedi also has a point to make, and I'll go across to Ira. Yes, Pooja Bedi.
Yeah, also what happens is a lot of these moralists have this sense that if you teach children sex education, it makes them promiscuous. However, the WHO has done this really extensive survey in developed countries, and they came to the conclusion in all their surveys that basically it did not lead to promiscuity amongst children. Sex education does not lead to promiscuity amongst children. So let's get that clear and let's get that sorted. So if there's any doubt that these moralists have in that regard, let's clear that right away with the survey.
Yes, Ira.
Padmaja, can I just read out one sentence?
No, but wait, before that, let's also get in Ira Trivedi. And Ira Trivedi, shouldn't the focus of the health minister in fact be on how sex education should be done in a proper fashion in schools? Because in most schools, when a survey was done, it was found that even the curriculum that is given is mostly skipped by the teachers. So instead of doing away with it altogether or seeing how it can be modified culturally, shouldn't the accent actually be on how it can be done more effectively so that students are not made to feel like it's a taboo subject?
Just, stepping in right here, the bottom line is that, young Indians are having sex, whether we want to accept it or not. Now, what we can do is we can give them the tools, the knowledge for them to have safe sex, for them to understand their sexuality, or we can hide it under the carpet like it has for so many years. But the fact is that this simple fact that young Indians are having sex, premarital sex, is not going to change. And I think this is not just about sex before marriage, it's not about those morals, it's also about once you get married, once you want to start a family, how you choose to birth control and all of those other things. So I do believe that our government needs to take an extremely broad-minded view on this subject, impart as much and as sort of a stringent sex education curriculum than ever before, because giving scope and the breadth of changes in our society, which really has never happened before. And as I mentioned, and in fact written an entire book about this, India and Love, is all about India's sexual revolution, that if we do not provide infrastructure to young people, to India's young, we are going to have extremely grave consequences in the very near future. So I actually think it is
And the objective only is to develop healthy attitudes towards sex, Sambit. It's not about encouraging children to go out and experiment.
What she's saying has been summed up by Dr. Harsh Vardhan. Let me just read out the last sentence. I believe we would need no debate there. Dr. Harsh Vardhan summed up: sex education that builds society free of gender discrimination, teenage pregnancy, HIV/AIDS proliferation, pornographic addiction, etc. should be our goal. So this is the goal of the government that we are speaking today. So where is the distinction that we are drawing? Where is the line of difference that we are having?
But what you're talking about is the clarification. Naturally, a clarification will be trying to cover up what the original statement was.
Which was written some time ago on a context of 2007.
No, you cannot have a person changing his thought processes, his point of view in 8 months.
2007, which was accepted even by the UPA government. System was changed after become minister. He does not give a single statement about it. You still manufacture a debate. He comes up with the answer and you don't accept the answer.
He's made two statements back to back. Come on, 2013 vlog as well as this.
Priyanka, what I read out at the end is the sum up of the debate. We stand to see that.
Is the sum up of his clarification?
This is a clarification. This is not what he wrote in his blog. He spoke about banning sex education. Let's get that clear.
A clarification of a manufactured debate, a blown out of proportion debate, which was
that's how you would choose to look at it. But please understand,
it's not required.
No, this is something that you would choose to look at. You need to understand this is the need of the hour. Every child needs to look.
So who is refusing that? Even Dr. Harsh Vardhan is saying that. So why are we having a debate? We are having a consensus over here. We should celebrate rather than having a fight.
That's a manufactured consensus.
No, not at all.
Is there really a consensus? Because you know what? Because the Springdale's principal, Ameeta Wattal, asked the question.
You also have clarification in your hand.
Why haven't just listen? Just hear me out, Sambit, Patra. The reason why we are having this debate, and I am a doubter here in terms of the real intent and whether or not it was a face saver and nothing but a cover up, is because when Ameeta Wattal asked, why aren't you asking the adolescents and why are we debating this? Because I am asking you this because these are people who are making policy. Both the Congress and the BJP, equal number of people who are part of that group in 2009, which reviewed the adolescents education program in 2009. And here's what they said unanimously between the Congress and the BJP members, including other parties. The first point they head out. The first point says there should be no sex education in schools. That was what they deliberated and agreed. And now today you're trying and coming out and saying, oh, this government is for good sex education. So what was it then? How did things change in 4 years or 5 years? It's the same number of people who are also there. Between the Congress and the BJP, including the Samajwadi Party, the left, AIADMK, RJD, Trinamool Congress, all of them were there as part of that committee. So now tell me what is the real intent and where do you stand?
And do you know, Anand, the opening statement of the committee
today, as of 27th of June 2014, the statement that you are reading out, in that very statement he says, I oppose vulgarization of sex education.
The quote is the sex education that I stand for must have for its object the conquest and sublimation of sex passion. So says Mahatma Gandhi. I don't know whether most of the panelists over here would agree or differ from Mahatma Gandhi. We can have a debate on that also. But these were the words with which
what I am asking you is, are you trying to implement and trying to give away, trying to dispense primitive wisdom in the modern era? Today, when you are saying you see the reality down on ground, down on ground.
You also have the clarification of Dr. Harsh Vardhan.
Are you going to tomorrow come out and say, let's not have any anti-rape laws at all? Let's try and educate the men and tell them, okay, let's try and cleanse and build up a value system. And that is what we should focus on. And not try and check what the menace is today, what stare straight on our face. When he says fidelity is safer and a better method, what
Priyanka, your MPs were against
it. What reality are you talking about? What is your plan of action for the next 5 years?
We will do all that we did not do all these years.
Whatever we did then, you're going to repeat now.
We will do all that you did. You failed to do all these years.
No, but explain.
We see what is happening, sir. We see what is happening.
Don't worry about that. We'll do it.
With the kind of comments we see, please, we are very, we do not see much hope.
We'll do it and we'll show it.
Okay, fine. But Priyanka, explain the objections of your own members of parliament.
Yes, exactly.
Were there an embarrassment to what the Congress's stand is?
Absolutely. There was a committee of 9 people. Let's also understand. You have a health minister unilaterally coming and making a statement like this. While there, we had a group of 10 people who came up with this conclusion, which I do not personally agree with. And I would say that whatever the conclusion was something I don't agree with. But having said that, does not mean that you keep continuing the same debate in 2014.
What was decided in 2007 debate you can continue in 2014.
No, I'm sorry. This was something that Mr. Harsh Vardhan himself spoke about in his talk in 2013 as a chief minister candidate for the BJP.
You cannot discuss a 2007 issue now. But you can discuss other issues now.
I am ready to discuss. You have not been able to explain to me.
All I'm trying to say is there was
today's issue also, Sambit, Patra, I am not convinced with your answer.
While you have a union health minister making a unilateral statement based on his point of view, based on his thought processes.
Priyanka, for God's sake, try to understand. This statement was for 2007. In fact, the kind of statement that we had for a particular course was scrapped by the then UPA government. Even the chief ministers of Congresses objected to the tool. It was done away with. No one objects to the present methodology of sex education. No one is objecting to that.
Curriculum was a
but
part
Dr. Ameeta Wattal, isn't that the basic problem when schools try to implement some sort of sexual awareness programs in their premises? Then suddenly you have this political view on what exactly that curriculum should be like. Here you have healthcare professionals, you have officials from the National AIDS Control Organization getting together saying this is what the children should be spoken to about. But then you have a political view on it and you're back to square one. Isn't that the real problem?
Well, you see, it depends on how you are, how progressive you are. Firstly, I don't think that you should compartmentalize value education and compartmentalize sex education and compartmentalize education for peace differently. Everything is interdependent, everything is interrelated. And I think it's very important that when you are teaching or when you are imparting firstly, it's a dialogical approach. You don't stand there and teach anything. It's a dialogue. It comes through the needs of children. Whatever their needs are, accordingly you dialogue on that. You empower teachers to dialogue on that. So I think when you are progressive and you are dialoguing, I don't think anything should come in the way. I mean, because we are living in a democratic country, it is a free country. We understand as practitioners and educationists what our children needs, what are their problems, what are they dealing with. And so during that dialogue, I think all these kind of issues, values, peace, education for sex, all these issues come together and they are interrelated, because you can't have violence on a woman, you can't have rape and say it is not a value. I mean, it's something which is totally against our values. Or if you have child molestation, it's against our values. So the issue is that these are all interrelated. We can't separate these issues and say let's have value education separately, education for peace separately, and sex education separately. I think this is all a holistic level of life. It's education for emotional skills, for life, for all issues.
The fact that we're even having such a debate in our country today means that we have so many hang-ups about the word sex. We are so hung up about this word, and hence it clearly illustrates a need for sex education. We need to get rid of our bloody hang-ups regarding sex.
Well, you had a point to make. You've been waiting for quite some time listening to them.
There should be a scientific approach to it.
Quickly say something.
If it is required, it should be debated and it should be in the curriculum of our
is it not there already? Are you trying to say that what is there as part of the curriculum is not right?
He's just opining about the curriculum.
Yeah, but that's the question I'm asking Mr. Shukla, because his opinion about the curriculum is that it's vulgar. He says vulgarization of sex education. So what does he mean by that?
He may be misinformed about that. He should be informed that this is in our curriculum.
vulgar in any way.
And there is nothing vulgar about it.
Understand
He
it. He's
should be
only
informed
saying
if
that
it is
I had
vulgar.
opposed to it way
can be
back and it
informed.
was taken back.
No.
We do not like to have that kind of system.
Why did he talk about it today?
Anand, let me remind you.
He has not talked about it in that article. He has not talked about it in 2013. He has mentioned vulgarization as part of the explanation, as part of the safe saver. He has mentioned it today on 27th of June.
He had inculcated
Now you are talking in past tense, Sambit Patra. Now you are talking in past tense.
Till now.
Now you are talking in
Kudos
past
to
tense.
him.
You are talking in past tense. I am quoting today. Why did he has not mentioned vulgarization of sex education until the statement, the clarification statement today? Why did he not mention it in his vision document? Why didn't he put it on his website? Why did he say that his issue is with the vulgarization of sexual education, sex education as it's happening in schools, because it's an issue of implementation and not of policy? It's the clarification today where it talks about implementation of the vulgarization. And please, he has to explain in what form and where has he seen sex education in schools being vulgar.
Why do we have a debate so long on this? Anand, it's a close and shut case.
It's not a close and shut case, sir. You are trying to close the case. You are trying to put the lid on a case which has opened a can of worms.
He gives the clarification that this is not a present.
I am questioning the clarification.
I have never demanded.
I am questioning the clarification. I am questioning the clarification.
I would just like to mention there was no word like vulgarization. Let me just clarify this. There was nothing like vulgarization. They had raised an objection. You cannot term it as vulgar. This is a word that has come through Dr. Harsh Vardhan.
Yes,
Please
exactly.
get that clear also.
In 2007, the toolkit that you had was objected upon by people
not called vulgar.
across.
Please understand the difference. Between
Remember,
deciding the boundaries, what is vulgar and what is objectionable.
It's not me, the respectable lady teachers
these are the
across the country had complained then to your government.
You're trying to thrust
the
on us.
UPA government had complained and the
Ira
UPA government had done away with it. Not us, remember.
Ira Trivedi, don't you find it ironic that even in his explanation, he's talking about, Dr. Harsh Vardhan today talks about, and the BJP spokesperson talks about, a value-based education, not realizing the irony even in that phrase in the clarification. What is value-based education? Here you're talking about what has been formulated by the competent authorities, people who have expertise in the particular area. But no, you want a value-based education. Whose values are we talking about, Ira?
Exactly. I mean, what are these culture? What is this? What are the values? What is this culture? How do we debate the extent of vulgarization? I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're making this into some sort of a political debate that, oh, this was done in 2007 and this is what happened. But I do think that what is more important here is action. And when I see the government take certain progressive action, and there is so much that needs to be done and so much that can be done, I do think that that's when I will truly believe that this government has put something forward. So it's not enough for people to come on a Times Now debate and say, oh, but Dr. Harsh Vardhan doesn't mean this, and nowhere there's no debate to be had. Yes, of course there's a debate to be had. Two very backward-looking statements were made over the course of 1 week.
As far as value-based education is concerned, I believe all of us have wisdom less than the Supreme Court of this country. Yes. There was a case about value-based education in the Supreme Court, and that was by BJ Varghese, Aruna Roy and others versus NCRT, where the Supreme Court agrees that, well, yes, value-based education can be had in this country. So what is the problem? And today, ironically, the word value has become such a detrimental word.
The problem is not when you talk value. The problem is when you call it
value is not a bad word, but the interpretation is.
When you decide what is immoral.
No one is saying, Priyanka, no one is saying sex education is immoral. No one is saying sex education is immoral. No one is saying. And last to the person who said
sex education as you decided.
But why, if he in the same breath utters the word value, you take it as a vulgar word? Value is not the new vulgar, remember?
Not a vulgar word, a problematic word because it's open to interpretation.
The Supreme Court of this country in this particular case
and can be used in the way that you all find is right.
Not
very
at all.
clearly.
The Supreme Court finds it right. You are talking of value-based education. The Supreme Court in the BG Varghese Aruna Roy versus NCRT petition 98 of 2002 holds that value-based education should be a part of education. What is the problem with value word?
Can I ask you a counter? Now let me ask you a counter question and hear me out here.
Please.
If you are quoting 2002, my counter to you is, but should value education be imparted at the expense of sex education and knowledge about the human reproductive system? And let me also quote Justice Verma
Not at
committee
all.
on the December 16 Nirbhaya case. After that, what he mentioned, this is what he says. He says it is pertinent to know, I'm telling you, Justice Verma report that looked into India's rape laws, December 16 Delhi gang rape, said about the importance of sex education. So, you're quoting 2002, I'm talking December 16th after Nirbhaya, so as recent as just about 2 years ago. So now tell me, what do you want to talk? You want to go back to the past? There also he doesn't say value education at the expense of sex education. The 2002 ruling also doesn't say, it just cites the importance of value education, but not at the expense of sex education.
Take the answer
so you
now.
can't make a one-sided argument.
Take the answer. Anand, take the answer for God's sake.
Go
the
ahead.
Answer is, I'll just read out 3 sentences of UNICEF. The sentence is, in India, it cannot be a one-size-fits-all package imported from the West, says the UNICEF. It has to be tailor-made for different sections of the society in
So
India.
hasn't that been done?
It's been tailor-made by now.
Depending
It's been
upon
tailor-made by
culture
NACO.
in various places of India, let's have a system in place which teaches and imparts sex education to people.
So hasn't it
but
been
also
done already
upholds
by the
value of
ministry and NACO?
society.
No, but who's better
Why not
equipped?
this holistic approach? What's the problem with this holistic approach?
The problem is, Sambit Patra, that who is better equipped to tailor it to suit our needs? People from the National AIDS Control Organization, or the Health Minister belonging to the BJP, or you, the spokesperson of the BJP? Won't you agree that the principals, people from NACO, who sat down and decided the curriculum are better equipped?
NACO comes in the middle of this whole debate. Anyhow, has the NACO objected to what Dr. Harsh Vardhan said?
They are caught.
No,
They are
how
caught
can
in the
they?
wrong
He's the
foot.
Health Minister.
No.
What do you expect them to do?
They
They
are
are
all
rethinking
enlightened
their AIDS
people. They can
campaign
object
now.
to anyone.
What else do you want?
They are enlightened. They can object to anyone if anyone is wrong. But they have not objected only because of the fact that Harsh Vardhan talks of a holistic approach. And remember, any system and every system can be improvised only when we take a holistic view of the system. A segregated view of any system only leads to its ultimate
Holistic
collapse.
view does not mean drawing boundaries.
Where is the
calling
boundary?
things vulgar, calling it immoral.
Holistic views
and
means
judging,
removing boundaries.
And judging that
For
what
God's
was
sake.
important
He
is
had
not
boundaries
Ira Trivedi has a
vulgar.
rebut.
Now he talks about, yes,
Sambit, Ira
condoms
Trivedi-
as well as fidelity.
Ira Trivedi has a rebut to your point. Yes, Ira.
Yes.
Ira, go ahead.
Okay, what I was saying was that values and morality are something very different, and values evolve with time. At one point, even sati was acceptable in our country, but that has changed now. So I don't think that we can't have this as a value-based discussion at all. It is really a discussion
No one's
about what
propagating
India
sati
needs
system out here
at
over
this.
here. We are
Get
not
the point,
talking
Sambit.
about
Get the
system.
point.
giving
Get
you
the
an
point she's trying to
example.
make.
The point
No
is
one,
that
no.
at one point that
Please.
was acceptable and those were values, but at this point it's just totally changed, and values and morals change with time. And I think that there's a huge generation divide here between our health minister.
Ira ji, I
and
don't
between
understand. If the health minister says that fidelity is important as condom, why should we criticize him? Is fidelity such an unimportant
The
issue in
issue
the
is when he
society
says it's
today?
safer than condom.
Should not be a husband committed to the wife.
In the current
is it such
scenario.
a out thing? Is it such a vulgar thing?
your choice if you remain to be if you can't teach someone how to be.
It's a good choice. Ira ji, as a man today on a national television, I think it's one of the best choice that a husband or a wife should ever make in one's life, to be faithful to one's partner. Yes, we should all stand by this. This is not a bad vulgar word, to be faithful to one's partner in life.
I don't think Dr.
Where
Harsh
is this discussion
Vardhan or
going?
anyone else should be imparting morals to Indian society. They should not be casting what they believe. What the
No one is
BJP
teaching morals. No morals are being taught over here. We are only
Pooja Bedi has a
discussing
point.
that, please, for God's sake,
Sambit, just
let
hear out
not our
Pooja Bedi.
values be denigrated to vulgarity.
Sambit, please hear out Pooja Bedi. Yes, Pooja Bedi, you seem to be upset with the way this discussion is going. You had a point to make. Where Sambit is
because
taking
I don't know where the discussion is going about monogamy and fidelity, etc. We're talking about sex education in schools. We're talking about the value of that education, and they're talking about value-based education. It can be both. And my point is, why are you even bringing the word vulgarity into the picture without even seeing the curriculum that's set? I can understand a government saying, yes, it's very important that we have sex education. It's a need of the hour. The next generation should be empowered with this education. Cut to you have a curriculum in place, and then if there is something objectionable, you debate it. From in advance to say it cannot be vulgar, it's already insinuating
That's
that a
what,
very
Pooja ji,
learned
have you
panel of
read the
people
blog?
is going to
If
sit
you
forward
had
and put
read
a
the
very
blog,
vulgar
then you would not
curriculum
have
to our
raised this
kids.
question.
I don't
Well,
even
the
see what
blog
that is.
clearly
The blog
ended
clearly
with saying
states-
so
the
sex
blog
education
clearly
is to be
states that
banned.
it is it was
And what
made
is
in
this holistic
2007.
nonsense about
This
fidelity
statement was
and
of
whatever nonsense?
2007.
I mean,
Pooja.
yes, you know, you
when
have a
the
wish
course
list
was
of things
read,
that you would
when
like,
we had
but there's a
objected to the
reality
course,
that you're
that
faced with.
particular
Of course,
tool was
it's a wishful
withdrawn.
thinking that we
So
should
it
all
is
be
not a
faithful,
matter
we should
which
all
was
be
discussed in the
monogamous, and the
present
world should be
scenario.
perfect,
And
we should
that's
all
the
be
reason as to
angels.
why
But at
time
the
and
end of the
again
day,
I'm
we're living
saying
as human
that this
beings
is a
in
manufactured
reality.
debate
And reality
which is
doesn't
trying
mean
to
that
bring
every
in the
single person
past
is going
to
be
a
faithful the rest
present
of their life.
tense.
Let's scrap that bloody debate. We're talking about sex education in school, and let's stick to that.
But please go to the blog also, Pooja ji, at the end of the day.
The blog clearly ends by saying sex education needs to be banned.
Yes, that's what I've been saying. So why are we debating? So why are we debating?
What are we debating?
When you know
It
that the
has
blog
to be
says
banned.
that sex education has no, it is
It's
saying
to
that
be banned.
Here is the blog. Can I hand it over? You are just next door
I
neighbor
know,
of mine over here.
even
sex
I've read your
education that
the
brings
blog.
society needs to be the goal of the government.
That's
what
the
the blog
press
ends
release
as.
now.
Yes.
That's your press release.
That is also as a blog. That has also come as a blog.
What are you talking about?
Yes, the press release also has come as a personal capacity.
No, I'm just talking about the clarification. I'm talking about the blog that he wrote in 2013 as a candidate.
You were misquoting him from the very beginning.
As a candidate of the BJP.
Not at all.
Please.
Please, for God's
And
sake,
even
you all
his
have to go
press
to the
release
issue and you have to
continues
realize
calling
that
it
what he's
vulgar.
talking about.
Continues calling
At the
it
end of the
vulgar.
day, stop misquoting Dr. Harsh Vardhan. He is a man who got a polio for India. Please have respect for this man.
I totally respect him, but I do not
That's
respect
the
his
surprise
views right now.
that we
Not at all.
thought
His
some
view is
more,
not to
some
do
more
away with
brevity
sex
in the
education.
choice of
Not at all.
words and voicing of opinion from a person as respected as Dr. Harsh Vardhan, and that is why this debate, because it's a cause for worry.
Yes,
if somebody
we
like
should all
Dr.
show
Harsh
respect to our
Vardhan were to
Health
air a
Minister.
point of view like this and say it's my personal view and it's been misinterpreted, he has left grounds for questioning, and that's what we've put out. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us on debate number 1 on the News Hour tonight.